Hello and welcome to Mishra's Workshop, the place that helps you get the most out of your decks and commanders. Today we are looking into the toolbox. These videos are to give you deck building tips and tricks and card analysis for the gray area between high level casual and fringe competitive. Today's topic is Commander Legends. Now, Commander Legends is a draftable set meant for Commander players. That sounds pretty good. Except for the draft part. That kind of tells us that there's quite a bit of bulk in this set. But there are some diamonds in the rough. This set has some amazing reprints. Scroll Rack, Mana Drain, Vampiric Tutor, just to name a few. But there is one reprint that I was shocked to see. 3 visits? At first look, it's just a Nature's Lore with a different name. But this card hasn't been printed since Portal 3K. Portal 3K was a set printed in 1999 and was specifically designed for the Asian market. It didn't even see a printing in North America. The only English copies are from Australia and New Zealand, so this set has a huge price tag. And 3 visits was around $50 before this reprinting. And now it's just an uncommon. I definitely didn't see this one coming. But enough with the reprints. Let's get into the new cards of the set. This set has some crazy new cards for Commander. Some of which might be a little too much. But we'll get into those later and have a long talk about that. First, let's start off with 2 new cards that do kind of the same thing. Coercive Recruiter and Port Raiser. Coercive Recruiter is a 4/3 Orc Pirate for 4 and a red. Whenever Coercive Recruiter or another pirate enters the battlefield under your control, gain control of target creature until end of turn. Untap that creature. Until end of turn, it gains haste and becomes a pirate in addition to its other types. Port Raiser is a 4/4 Orc Pirate for 3 red. When Port Raiser deals combat damage to a player, untap each creature you control. After this combat phase, there's an additional combat phase. Port Raiser can't attack a player it has already attacked this turn. Now, I think you know where I'm going with this. Both of these cards go infinite with Kiki Jiki Mirror Breaker. Coercive Recruiter is just a pirate-themed Zealous Conscripts. And you do have to get in with combat damage and jump through a couple hoops with Port Raiser, but it does the same thing. That last part of the card that says Port Raiser can't attack a player it's already attacked this turn does not apply to the tokens that you make with Kiki Jiki. So you essentially have infinite tokens and infinite combat steps. Now let's start getting these crazy cards out of the way. Next up, we're taking a look at Opposition Agent. Now, I know most of you have probably already seen this, but let's go over it one more time just in case you haven't. Opposition Agent is a 3/2 human rogue for 2 and a black with flash. You control your opponents while they search their libraries. When an opponent is searching their library, they exile each card you find. You may play those cards for as long as they remain exiled, and you may spend mana as though it were mana of any color to cast them. Wizards just made a mishmash of Aven Mind Sensor and Praetor's Grasp. This card is just nuts. It's another black staple. It's another reason to play black over other colors like white. And it's going to see a lot of play. The most common card talked about that combos with Opposition Agent is Marlin of the Mornstar. Players can't draw, they search their libraries instead. Except you search their libraries, and then you play their cards. If someone plays a tutor into another player holding up 2 and a black, at least, it could be game over if you don't have interaction. This card alone could change the meta of CEDH. Right now, Inala Wizard's Chess is rising in popularity because of how consistent and fast it is. But Opposition Agent just shuts it down, full stop. Not only does it lose both its tutors, it loses the combo pieces if Opposition Agent resolves. Now, that's enough of Opposition Agent. Let's go to the next extremely pushed card. Hull Breacher is a 3/2 Merfolk Pirate for 2 and a blue with Flash. If an opponent would draw a card except the first one they draw in each of their draw steps, instead, you create a treasure token. That's right, it's Smothering Tithe and Narset, Parter of Veils, on a blue creature. Again, our format also loves to draw cards, and this is going to see probably just as much play as Opposition Agent. This is a staple for Tymna Krom Opus Thief, and even though it's kind of a non-bow, I could see Nekusar and Xyrus playing this as well. If you thought getting wheeled with a Smothering Tithe out was bad, just wait till someone wheels and then plays a Hull Breacher. At least you still get to draw the cards with Smothering Tithe. So I think we need a little bit of a break from pushed cards before we talk about the chase rare of the set. So let's talk about the lands. Commander Legends finishes the Battle Bond land cycle. Each of these lands enter the battlefield tapped unless you have 2 or more opponents. Good thing it's multiplayer. And they tap for 1 of 2 colors. These are some of the best lands for Commander. The only thing that can make them better is if they had the basic land type. They come into play untapped 9 times out of 10, and they color fix. What more could you want? But at the end of the day, they're still just lands. There's not much to talk about. So let's talk about Jessica's Will. Jessica's Will is a sorcery for 2 and a red. Choose one, but if you control a commander when you cast this spell, you may choose both. Add red for each card in target opponent's hand, and or exile the top 3 cards of your library. You may play them this turn. This is another solid ritual for red. Usually there's at least one player at the table who has 5, 6, 7 cards in hand, and you're going to get 5, 6, or 7 mana off of this card. It's great. And on the off chance that all of your opponents have 3 or less cards in hand, it's impulsive card draw. It's almost never dead. Okay. Now that those straightforward but still very good cards are out of the way, let's go over Jeweled Lotus. Jeweled Lotus is an artifact for 0 that says tap and sacrifice Jeweled Lotus, add 3 mana of any one color. Spend this mana only to cast your commander. Yep, Black Lotus has been reprinted for Commander. Kind of. Is this a very strong card? Yes. Is it pushed? Yeah, it's Black Lotus. Now, you can only spend this mana to cast your commander, so it's really only going to see play in like 80% of decks. Seriously, not every deck wants to play Jeweled Lotus. Decks that don't rely on their commander don't need this card. Decks whose commanders are very color intensive don't need this card. Let's use the 2 commanders that we have blueprints for as an example. Varina Lich Queen and Omnath Locus of Creation. Varina relies on taking advantage of both of her abilities, and the sooner she's out, the better. So Jeweled Lotus would probably help speed the deck up, even if you're just benefiting from 2 mana instead of 3. But this is an absolute dud in Omnath Locus of Creation. You're not reliant on Omnath needing to be out, and by the time you're set up to win with Omnath, you'll already have infinite mana, so there's no need for Jeweled Lotus. Besides, it only taps for 1 color, so you're essentially just getting a restricted Lotus Petal at that point. And I think that's the biggest problem with Jeweled Lotus. It's either hit or miss. There's no gray area in between. Either the deck benefits from playing it, or it doesn't. So I highly urge you, don't treat Jeweled Lotus as a staple. It really doesn't fit in every deck. Make sure you think over your deck strategy, how important your commander is to it, and how much will your deck actually benefit from getting your commander out early. Okay, all the non-legendary cards that I wanted to highlight are out of the way. So let's look at the new commanders. Now, there's so many new legendary creatures, and a lot of them have partner. So the combinations on top of that, I'm bad at math, but it's a lot. And this isn't an hour and a half video, so I'm just gonna highlight the commanders that stuck out to me on first impressions. I definitely missed something, and I'm sorry. First up are the commanders from the Precon decks. Let's start off with Wylith, Soul of Steel. Wylith is a 2/2 legendary human warrior for 1 red-white with trample, and whenever Wylith, Soul of Steel attacks, draw a card for each aura and equipment attached to him. So Boros is getting even more card draw, but is this enough to make Voltron viably competitive? Maybe. Voltron has two things going against it that makes it very difficult to break through into CEDH. Wylith deals with only one of those things. Usually Voltron decks, especially Boros, run out of gas really quick. But Wylith solves this problem by having your auras and equipments basically replace themselves. Unfortunately, Wylith doesn't solve the other problem holding Voltron back from breaking into CEDH. The deck revolves around your commander, and all of your plays are pretty much telegraphed. Play your commander if he's not out already, pump up your commander, attack someone till they die. Now, I'm not forgetting about Godo. Godo is absolutely CEDH viable and is an exception to this rule, but he still suffers from the problem of being extremely telegraphed. When you go into a pod with Godo, you know exactly what to expect. Ramp into Godo into Helm of the Host. But Godo is a one-card combo in the command zone, so if Wylith is trying to compete with Godo, he's going to have to bring something else to the table, and I think that something else is resiliency. Focus on giving Wylith protection from colors like blue and black, then kill the table with infinite combat steps like Aggravated Assault and Sword of Feast and Famine, if you need it. I have a feeling this set is really going to slow down the CEDH meta, and if that happens, Wylith might have a chance. Next up is AC, Tyrant of Gyre Strait. AC is a 5/5 legendary serpent for 4 green-blue. You may play an additional land on each of your turns, and whenever a land enters the battlefield under your control, you may draw a card. Does this sound familiar? AC is like Tatyova Benthic Druid with a bigger body, a slightly higher CMC, but it lets you play an additional land per turn. Now Tatyova already sees some competitive play as either a stacks deck or a lands deck, but does AC replace Tatyova? AC has a bigger body, lets you play an additional land, so at face value it seems like AC is the better commander. But that jump from 5 CMC to 6 CMC is bigger than it looks, and that's why I think they are on an even playing field, and choosing between the two is really just a meta choice. AC is better versus aggro and stacks decks, with the exception of Confounding Conundrum, but Tatyov is better against the fast, proactive decks that have taken over the general meta of CEDH right now. Tatyova would definitely be in AC's 99, but I'm not so sure AC would be in Tatyova's 99. It's nice to have a backup commander, but that CMC makes it very unreliable to be played ahead of curve. I think there are two decks now, AC Stacks and Tatyova Lands. They can easily be swapped out for each other, but with AC's higher CMC, slowing down your opponents gives you a better chance at playing AC at a reasonable time in the game, and that additional land drop pushes you even further ahead of your opponents. Next up is Kodama of the East Tree. Kodama of the East Tree is a 6/6 legendary spirit for 4 green green with reach. Whenever another permanent enters the battlefield under your control, if it wasn't put onto the battlefield with this ability, you may put a permanent card with equal or lesser converted mana cost from your hand onto the battlefield. And it has Partner. This is a pretty powerful effect that reminds me of Primal Surge. But just like AC, Kodama of the East Tree costs 6. Unless you ramped really hard early, by the time you get to play Kodama of the East Tree, the game should be ending. So, if Kodama of the East Tree comes down so late, why am I talking about it? It's because of another new partner that's coming out with Commander Legends. Sakashima of 1,000 Faces. Sakashima is a 3/1 legendary human rogue for 3 and a blue. You may have Sakashima of 1,000 Faces enter the battlefield as a copy of another creature you control, except it has Sakashima of 1,000 Faces' other abilities. The legend rule does not apply to permanents you control. So, if Sakashima is a copy of Kodama of the East Tree, you can loop their effects to play every single permanent in your hand. Even though it's slow, these two partners have a lot of potential together. I haven't been able to really dive in to find out what these two can do, but I do have one combo to at least push you guys in a certain direction, and I'm sure you're going to find out more. You're going to need Kodama of the East Tree and Sakashima of 1,000 Faces as a copy of Kodama of the East Tree out on the battlefield. Then you're going to need Tatiova or AC and Oboro Palace in the Clouds in your hand or on the battlefield. For sake of clarity, we're going to say they're in your hand. First, let's play Tatiova from our hand. This will trigger Kodama of the East Tree and Sakashima. Let's say Sakashima's effect resolves first, and we're going to play Oboro Palace in the Clouds. Then Tatiova, Kodama of the East Tree, and Sakashima all trigger again. You're going to draw a card off of Tatiova, and with Kodama of the East Tree's effect on the stack, you're going to tap Oboro for a blue, and then activate Oboro to return it back to your hand. Then Kodama of the East Tree is going to resolve, you're going to play Oboro, and repeat this loop to draw your entire deck. This is only one of what I'm assuming are many different ways to break this pairing. But even with all of that going for them, there's still one card that has even more potential than these two. Jessica Thrice Reborn is a planeswalker with partner that can be your commander for 2 and a red. She has a loyalty of 0, but enters the battlefield with a loyalty counter for each time you've cast your commander this game. For 0, you can choose target creature, and until your next turn, if that creature would deal combat damage to one of your opponents, it deals triple that damage instead. She also has a -X. Jessica Thrice Reborn deals X damage to each of up to 3 targets. So we have an infinite mana outlet in our command zone. You could do this with Food Chain, you could do this with Dramatic Scepter. There's a ton of different ways, but these two are the most common. So Food Chain is green, Dramatic Reversal is blue, and Jessica has partner. I think you know where this is going. Jessica Thrice Reborn with Thrasios Triton Hero is probably going to be the most popular CEDH deck that comes out of Commander Legends. The synergy between these two commanders? Chef's kiss. They are both infinite mana outlets, so if you lose control of one of them, your backup is right there in the command zone. Mono Thrasios plus red and Food Chain? Why not? And those are my highlights for Commander Legends. I really wanted to try to shorten this from the last set review, but I don't think I did that good of a job. So if you're hearing this, thank you so much for sticking it out through the whole video, and let me know if I missed something that you think should have made the list, or if I put something on my list that you don't think deserved it. How do you feel about Commander Legends? Are you excited? Are you disappointed? Want to talk about Jeweled Lotus still? Talk to me in the comments below. Let me know what you think. Thanks for stopping by. I'll see you next time.